With the release of the new Player's Handbook and Dungeon Master's Guide, people are naturally curious, like what are the new spells, rule changes, character builds, mechanics? And this begs the question, what happens to 5e now that we have a new rule set? You know, 5e, who's been our faithful companion for the last decade? Are we really just going to ditch it for a new updated rule set? Is D&D really dead and buried? To answer this question, we're going to have to analyze the 2014 rules for a fair comparison. By the end of this journey, you will know if D&D 5e is the best choice for your table. We'll be using our 5 categories, which are fun factor, ease of play, character management, reliance on digital tools, and visual dependency. Welcome, adventurer. I'm the Blind Bard, and this is where we make connections through storytelling. In addition to my review, I'm going to be giving you the highlights of one of our campaigns. Let me set the scene for you. We start out in the holding dungeons of Grey Ridge. Our player characters have all been accused of something. Glennis, my character, was accused of assaulting a noble. Then there's Keedy, played by the Sleeping Sage. Venrilla, played by the Daring Druid, and Ulrif, aka Riff for short, played by the Muscle Mage. That's where our story begins, where things are not always what they seem, and dead things don't always stay dead. Stick around for my overall rating and final thoughts, and I know I'm extremely late to this party, but I couldn't find my giant D20. Seriously, I've been looking for it everywhere. Have you seen it? Oh, well, let's get rolling. And don't forget to secure your sword, because things are about to get dicey. For fun factor, we give D&D 5e a score of 4 out of 5 dragon heads. 5e strikes a balance between role play and tactics, so there's a little something for everyone. As a player, I love the D20 system. There's something about rolling the dice and critting on a nat 20 and doing max damage that just makes me feel empowered, like what we're doing matters. Although the advantage, disadvantage, and 6 stats work well, you need to track all sorts of stuff. Hit points, spell slots, modifiers. This game is math heavy. I like to call this crunch. The more crunch something has, the more immersion breaking it can be, because there is so much to track. Hit points, spell slots, modifiers, inventory, the list goes on. Hit point bloat is also a thing in this game. This is especially true when you reach higher levels, beyond level 5, 10 plus. On the other hand, I want you to consider this. Having an excessive amount of hit points means less thrills, means less stakes, less chance of death. So what happens to the excitement? Kind of goes away. And then it becomes boring. And who wants that? Personally, our table likes to stay between levels 1 to 6 because those are the most exciting. Chances of death are likely, especially in levels 1 to 2. And that's where all the fun is. That's where the action is. You know, and it's nice to advance as you move up in levels, but encounters become very hard to balance. There are 20 levels in the game, and only half of them are playable. And yes, I know there are players that play all 20 levels, and hey, if you like the crunch, more power to you. But for me, and for many visually impaired players, VIPs, it just makes it harder for us to track. I'd prefer not to refer to my character sheet so much. I just find that having to track everything breaks the immersion for me. Glennis was charged, arrested, and imprisoned. After a few hours, she heard a commotion outside in the town. After the screaming and shouting had died down, Glennis noticed that several prisoners were staring at her with dead eyes and hungry expressions. What was going on? One of them lunged at a young woman.
"Ah! Get off me!"
The elf, clad in world-weary leathers, immediately used her magic to defend herself, slicing her attacker's hand off clean at the wrist. Glennis gasped in shock as cold, clammy hands grasped her ankle, pulling her down into the hard concrete floor. She smelled his putrid breath and felt a searing pain as sharp teeth clamped onto her ankle and began to chew. With all her might, she drove her psychic knives into her attacker, killing him instantly. Just then, the guard burst into the cell.
"Hey, quiet!"
And that's when the severed hand lunged at him, striking him, knocking him off balance. Glennis deftly lifted the string of keys dangling from his keyring on his belt. Shaken, the guard sprang to his feet and ran from the room. Glennis was on her feet and at the door in seconds. She deftly unlocked it, Keedy following close behind. Glennis noticed across the room there was another cell with a man and a woman signaling to them. The man looked pissed off, and the woman looked scared, but otherwise they suffered no ill effects. Just then, the commotion picked back up, and screams and shouting can be heard coming from outside the dungeon door.
It sounds like a bloodbath up there. We better wait until it's quiet.
For ease of play, we give D&D 5e a score of 3 out of 5 dragon heads. D&D bridges the gap between a war game and a role-playing game. For those who like combat and tactics, it's excellent. But 5e's mechanics can be very crunchy, and by that I mean very math-heavy, very track-heavy, and they can break the immersion. I'm always looking at my character sheet, and spellcasters have it even worse. What's the spell save DC? What are its effects? How much damage does it deal? Is it even the best option for the situation? There are so many choices, and that can lead to analysis paralysis. And we can forget that we can rely on creative storytelling rather than what's on our character sheet. The predetermined stuff on our sheet is paper buttons. People are always going back to those, always trying to optimize. But as storytellers, we don't have to. We can think creatively, think outside the box, come up with our own answers to the situation. And in some cases, that can be even more fun than relying on those paper buttons. But for this game, it's hard not to use them. We become reliant on the paper buttons because it makes it that much easier for us to just pick something and go with it. So our actions become fast and things get done. At its heart, D&D 5e mechanics are great, and they really shine when storytelling takes precedence over the rules. After some time had passed, the group ventured upstairs and out into the waning sunlight. What they found there was shocking. Death everywhere. Bodies partially eaten. They grabbed what they could and headed away from the viscera-soaked dungeon and into the streets. Glennis pointed towards the boat tied up at the dock.
There, that's our way out.
They all made a run for it. As they did, Glennis could hear the infected gaining on them. As they reached the river's edge, they scrambled onto the boat, trying desperately to fight off the infected closing in on them. Grabbing the last oar, Glennis whirled around, cracking one over the head. Her eyes widened in recognition.
You!
It was the same guard as before. Eyes now dull and glazed over, expression hungry. Behind her, Riff swore, and a second later she heard a splash as two infected immediately submerged into the fast-flowing current. Glennis turned to see Riff massaging his thigh.
Riff, what happened?
Riff waved his hand dismissively.
Don't worry about it.
But Glennis's stomach dropped as she saw the gaping wound on his thigh.
What are you doing?
Venrilla gaped as Riff removed his shirt and began tearing it into strips.
Just what it looks like.
He began to wrap his wound.
I don't want to bleed out.
He finished knotting the makeshift tourniquet. With Venrilla and Keedy's help, they managed to wound the infected and push them all into the river, just as the last mooring lines to the dock was cut, leaving the zombies at the dock behind. For character management, we give D&D 5e a score of 3 out of 5 dragon heads. The character creation process is pretty complex. There are so many options, so many ways to optimize, so many ways to create a character. Unless you know exactly what you want, it's going to take an hour or more. Even with D&D Beyond, which I would recommend using to create your character, as it does most of the math for you. And unless you know exactly how you want to optimize your character, what class you want to play, what spells you want, you're going to have to go through the player's handbook and slog through all the character options to pick the build that you want. I like to call this the Build-A-Bear technique because it allows you to customize to the nth degree. And a lot of players like this. I used to like this. When I was first getting into D&D, that was me. I wanted to handpick everything, and consequently, it took me 5 hours. I didn't mind it though. It was really important that I played what I wanted to play. But nowadays, I would much rather just do a rando character. Let D&D Beyond decide for me so I can get right into the roleplay. I used to be that person that liked to optimize every single thing about my character. But now I find it much more entertaining to create a random character and based on the stats I get, develop a character around those stats, even if they're low stats, because sometimes those can be the most fun. I made my Horizon Walker for the teleportation ability, and we ended our campaign at level 7, so that was kind of a disappointment. Don't base your character on a level 20 ability because I can promise you'll never get there. Most campaigns don't reach level 20. And I can remember when I first started making a character, it was really confusing. When you're a new player, you have to read the rules, what they mean, how to create your character, but I didn't really understand about the stats, how the abilities worked, and what stat they were tied to. And I had an idea about what I wanted to build, so it can be challenging for new players. Before we move on to the next categories, if you're enjoying this review, I invite you to join our adventuring party by subscribing to the channel. And don't forget to take up your sword and strike that like button so I can continue to bring you more content like this. The river was moving them at a steady clip, right towards the chain barrier, which was meant to stop river traffic. There were dozens of smashed ships against this chain barrier, and they were heading right for them. Fenrilla exclaimed,
There's nowhere to go. We're gonna get smashed.
Yes, there is.
Riff said.
We climb the chain.
Their boat smashed into the graveyard of vessels, and the group jumped from sinking ship to sinking ship, wood splintering as they made their way one boat to the next, as the boats jostled into one another, and more zombies popped up out of the water and started heading towards them. They climbed the chain barrier that was blocking the river, fighting their way to the top of the outer guard tower and barring the entrance from the encroaching zombie horde.
Do you think they would help us?
Keaty pointed towards a group of knights riding in the streets below, dispatching zombies left and right as though stalks of wheat. Their white tabards, red crested with a white rose, still pristine as they continued to mow down the zombies.
Maybe.
Riff launched a magical flare, hoping for their help. For reliance on digital tools, we give D&D 5e a score of 2 out of 5 dragon heads. 5e relies heavily on digital tools. My group would stop playing 5e altogether if we didn't have access to D&D Beyond. D&D Beyond does a lot of the heavy lifting for you. It tracks your weapon damage, it tracks any conditions you have, it tracks all of your spells, what they do, their modifiers, tracks inventory, it tracks your rolls, and it just simplifies all of the math for you, which is invaluable. In the past, I've tried Braille character sheets, and I've tried large print character sheets, but it's a pain in the neck when you have to always update them every time you get a new item or every time you get a condition. Although there's a lot on the character sheet and it's tricky to navigate sometimes, having everything in one place is invaluable. I tested D&D Beyond using JAWS screen reader software and NVDA via computer, as well as VoiceOver on my iPhone and iPad. All of them worked reasonably well. It didn't take me long to learn how to access the website, and I was able to navigate to the different places with just my keyboard and access spells, magic items, monsters, and what have you. But looking up a particular monster and copying its stats over to a separate document so I could access it later was time consuming. You have to really know what you're looking for and search for that one thing. If you don't, you end up going through everything. The app is pretty cool. I was able to create a character. There is a bit of a learning curve, but it's a lot easier to track damage and spells and what have you on the app compared to the website. All these tools are amazing, but I'm still learning how to update my character sheet. So please let me know in the comments if you would like a more in-depth look at D&D Beyond and how to navigate it as a visually impaired player. D&D Beyond still supports the 2014 rules, but this may not always be the case. And now I'll get into some of the accessories that I have found useful and hope you do too. Dots RPG Project is a nonprofit dedicating to making tabletop role-playing games easier to run and to play as a visually impaired player. Dots RPG is weeks away from launching their acrylic and metal Braille dice sets. I'm going to be doing an unboxing video of these dice very soon, so watch out for that video. In 2020, I backed Pixels the Electronic Dice on Kickstarter. I received my die months ago and I've been using it in my games ever since. Pixels has been a game changer for me because not only does it light up in various fun ways and color patterns, it also speaks the roll aloud to me, so I know exactly what I'm rolling every single time. It's an amazing tool, and I will be doing more videos on Pixels and how to customize it, so watch out for those. If you have a print disability like I do, then you can sign up for the Braille and Audio Reading Download, or BARD service, from the National Library Service. This allows you to download digital books. BARD doesn't have a lot of D&D books. They do have the 2014 Player's Handbook, 2014 Dungeon Master Guide, and Xanthar's Guide to Everything. These are pretty good resources. The party saw the signal and turned around. They cut through the zombies in the lower section of the tower. Riff unbarred the door, and 3 knights clad in full suits of armor entered the tower.
Who cast that spell?
The apparent leader asked.
He did.
Glennis points to Riff.
Thank goodness you're here. Can you help us get out of here? Is anyone injured?
Clearly eyeing Riff and the bloody bandage.
Has anyone been bitten?
They exchange knowing glances. Riff breaks the silence first.
Yeah, me.
Before anyone could react, the guards grab him and behead him in one blow. They drop his body as though diseased, and his headless corpse lays on the floor as they bag his now severed head.
Follow us to safety. It's not a request.
For visual dependency, we give D&D 5e a score of 2 out of 5 dragon heads. 5e depends heavily on minis and maps. And minis really don't do anything for me visually, except to immortalize my favorite characters. Thanks, Hero Forge. I do have a couple of minis that I love and I keep on display all the time. Our table stopped using minis, but honestly, I don't care if we still use them. If they're valuable for the sighted people at the table and they want to use them, go right ahead. I also have to keep checking my character sheet every turn to help me figure out what I'm going to do. And the character sheet is packed with information. There's so much there. That just makes it that much more difficult because I am listening in one ear to voiceover read what's on my sheet, and I'm also listening to what's happening at the table. I find that really hard, having to split your attention, ask the DM for clarifying information and update positional information every turn, but I also have to look at my character sheet and decide what I'm going to do every turn. So that requires using voiceover to listen to everything on my character sheet, at the same time listening to what's happening at the table because I still want to stay engaged, but splitting your attention makes it really hard to do that. And I just find that really time consuming, and my time could better be spent on things like thinking about what I'm going to do next in the game. That's one of the things I'm trying to work on as a player, to always be prepared to know what I'm supposed to do next. So that's why visual dependency is really hard. Glennis, Keaty, and Vinrilla were escorted to Grey Ridge Keep in the center of the town. When the doors were opened, they noticed hundreds of people inside, all eyeing the strangers with fear.
Lady Keaty, it is quite an honor.
At his words, all eyes turned to the handsome young man descending the castle stairs.
I thought I recognized you.
Dressed in almost see-through robes, he exuded charm and confidence.
You do know that your mother's looking everywhere for you.
Outwardly, Glennis remained composed, but inside she seethed. It was him! That rake, that devil of a man, the one who had gotten her arrested.
My lord?
Ravenwood smiles.
Ravenwood, as I say, we've never met, but I've seen you about town.
He looped his arm with hers.
Come, my dear, you must stay as my guest. Oh, no, that's not necessary. Ah, but it is. In fact, I insist. Your mother would never forgive me if I let anything happen to you.
As he leads her away, Lady Keaty glances pleadingly over her shoulder before disappearing from view. Time passed. Glennis and Vinrilla wondered where they were going to sleep tonight. The doors flew open, and Ravenwood appeared on the balcony with Lady Keaty. He raised his hand for silence.
People of Grey Ridge, today we celebrate a great victory. The necromancer is dead, and his spells will no longer plague our cities. I give you his head!
Ravenwood produces Riff's severed head impaled on a spike and holds it out for all the crowd to see. His eyes darted around wildly before locking onto Glennis's, staring at her imploringly, beseechingly. His mouth was sewn shut, but he was very much alive. And that's why we gave D&D 5e a total score of 2.8 out of 5. What do you think, Scorch? Do you agree? Ugh, giving me the silent treatment again, huh? Well, fine. You won't get dinner tonight. D&D 5e is undeniably fun, but it's not the easiest game for visually impaired players to play or run due to its rules-heavy and visual nature. I'll always love 5e because it was the gateway for me into the TTRPG community, and I've had some wonderful experiences with all different kinds of people playing this game. Having said this, I don't think D&D 5e is dead at all. I think it might become less popular over time. It's my hope that both versions of D&D 5e and 2024 can coexist so that everyone can play the type of game that they want to play. 50% of the Wizard community agrees with our score. But now I want to hear from you. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. And also let me know, do you prefer a crunchy system or a streamlined, cleaner system? Remember, you have a voice that weaves wonders. So go forth and tell your tales. And I will see you in our next adventure. If you're still here, please help us slay the YouTube algorithm dragon by subscribing, sounding the enchanted bell, and ensuring all our notifications reach you so you're always ready for our next escapade. Remember, you have a voice that weaves wonders. So go forth and tell your tales, and I will see you in the next adventure. Thank you for watching. Glynis pointed towards the duck, and blood-soaked. Yeah. Riff waved his hand. Okay. Riff waved his hand dismissively. And vanilla.